little bit different this time. I am actually live from Arkansas, and my mom, hi Mom, Dianna, is at home in Texas. So I am here at the Southern Belle Retreat, and I get to teach this weekend. And I'm here with an amazing group of students. And so I want to show you off them.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you should show them off.
So let's check everybody out. Everyone, woo! There's everybody. Look at that full house.
Hey, Corey, I think this is like the largest audience we've ever had.
You said what, Diana?
I said, I think this is the largest audience we've ever had.
This is the largest audience we've ever had. So this is super exciting. Tonight, I am joined with one of my best friends, Joanne Knight. Scoot on in. Scoot on in. And tonight we are going to be talking about quilting design choices. We have 6 different quilts planned out for you, all the way from edge to edge to a little bit of the custom side of things. Looking at how the quilt piecing talks to you and seeing how you're going to apply the design to go with that, right, Joanne?
Absolutely.
There we go. As always, before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. So it's going to be right down at the bottom right-hand corner. After you click on that little subscribe button, you will be able to click on the little bell that shows up so you can get notified whenever we post new videos or whenever we go live here at After Hours, wherever that may be.
Ding, ding.
Wherever that may be.
Exactly.
Do you have any questions you would like to ask?
No, I'm excited to be here with you guys. Just to let you know, if you're watching live, there might be a little bit delay because we're, from 2 different areas and the upload speeds aren't the same. But so if you have that delay, just stay tuned. It's going to be super fun. It'll be worth the delays anyway. So other than that, no, I'm excited to join everybody that's there. I am excited to see what the live audience that's online. We have tons of people online. I'm seeing all of them say hi. And so this should be fun, Corey. So I think, like I was saying earlier, I'm going to just take my popcorn. I'm going to sit back, relax, and let you guys do the work.
You're in charge of the comments because I can't see the comment section. So you comment, okay?
I'll take that. I'll take that.
They can be turned off now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dusty?
All right.
Lights, please.
So let's switch over and check out. We're going to turn off our hello. Alrighty. So the first quilt that we have planned out this evening is this plain quilt. A viewer of ours actually reached out to me and said, well, I know that you do these beautiful after-hour segments on design choices. And I was wondering if you could help design this quilt because I wasn't able to figure out exactly what I wanted to do with it. And I said, challenge accepted. So we were looking at this quilt. It has some beautiful plain applique there in the little airplanes there in the center of these blue blocks. And then it has these nice 9 patches here. And so when we're looking at more of a basic side, or more, not basic, that was a terrible term, a more easier, simplified side of quilting, especially edge-to-edge quilting. You're looking at something with this. You see a lot of straight lines in this. Y'all see a lot of straight lines in this, Bells? A lot of straight lines in this quilt. You've got applique on this. And if you're wanting to place something over this, you're looking at something that has a lot of curve to it when you're quilting that. Because if you have straight line quilting, it may accidentally fall into the ditch. And then at that point, you've lost that design on the front of the quilt. Okay. And so what we're looking at here is we have a pattern. And Diana, what's the name of the pattern?
It's Petals in the Rain. And that's by Jackie Brown. Sorry.
Petals in the Rain by Jackie Brown. And what I can do here is I'm just going to move this over onto the quilt just so we get a visual. And what I can see here is now with this pattern, looks like maybe some wind moving around. The plane is flying through the sky. It's getting movement into that applique. Stitches right over it, looks really, really well, but helps kind of break up a lot of that straight line piecing and kind of soften the quilt a little bit more. Do y'all see what I mean?
Well, and it's okay to quilt over the applique.
Right.
If you use a finer thread or a thinner thread, then it's okay to quilt over that applique. That's a little bit of education that you need to do for your customers because you don't want to leave too big a space with nothing quilted on it, because it's going to do this number on you. So that's not something that they're going to be happy with, because it's not going to hold up.
Right, right. So, and if you're looking at taking it more of like the custom level where you're wanting to kind of lock down that applique and then do something in that 9-patch section, what we had talked about doing here is we could take this crosshatch pattern, which this pattern is by Joyce Lundergan. It is a point-to-point pattern, joycelundergan.com for those watching. And what I can do here is that crosshatch will sit right on top of that applique. Okay, it just kind of locks that down. It also mimics the 9-patch right next to it. Okay, with those straight lines, and then you've got a continuous curve in the 9-patch to really break up what's going on in that that crosshatch. Joanna,
Right.
you said you had a
Yeah.
comment about how that
I
works.
really like that.
Yeah, because that way, like I said earlier, you can quilt over that applique. That's fine.
Right.
And then what you do, you don't want to put that straight line crosshatch, or the curve for that matter.
Right.
You don't want to put that in every single block, because if you put it in every single block, you just as well do an edge to edge pattern on it. It doesn't do any good to do that. So you've got to have some kind of difference in the patterns to be able to show that customer that you have done a little bit of custom on that, okay? And make that difference between the two of them.
And I think it's important, Corey. Yeah, Corey, I think it's important that we let people know that this can be done with any computerized machine when they're using a computerized pattern,
Right.
but it also can be done freehand. You know, you can, if you're a freehand quilter, this pattern can definitely be done. The Petals in the Rain comes in a pantograph, which is a paper pattern. So what we're showing you tonight is for any quilter. It can be a sit down, it can be a freehand, it can be a computerized quilter. So even though we're showing you on a computer screen, it does not mean it's only for computerized quilters. It's for everyone.
Right, it's more about what the pattern design choices are and how they are compatible with each other.
Right.
Yep.
Definitely. So the next quilt in the lineup, this is one of Joanne's. This is a star quilt. And Joanne, you want to talk a little bit about this quilt?
This quilt is red and green. It's one that I bought, which is a quilt shop, and I've stared at it for a long time. And a lot of the issue that comes in with me is I will work myself to death on them. And y'all will too. You'll stare at it and stare at it and stare at it. And finally, it's time to put it on the machine and just quilt the thing. Okay, just get it done, because now you have worked yourself up on it. So with this one, if you have a customer, or if it's your own quilt, you always want to think about, how much time do I want to put into this quilt? Is this going to be a quilt that I really want to be an heirloom piece, or is this going to be a quilt that I'm going to use every day? And so those are some of the choices that you make in the pattern choices that you do, and whether you're going to do custom or whether you're not going to do custom. Okay, if you're going to give it to your grandchild, then you might go, well, I might better do an edge to edge on that thing, and and call it done. And how much money does your customer have? How much time do you want to spend, and how much money does your customer have? Okay, so we've got a couple of options for you here. There's a lot of straight lines in this quilt. So if you choose something that has more curve to it, then it breaks up those straight lines and you're able to look at it. This is a red and green quilt. So is it a Christmas themed quilt?
Right.
All right. Or is it a quilt that you want to use all year because you love it? Then you don't want to go with a Christmas theme. You want to do something that is more everyday kind of doing.
Right, yeah, because whatever you did to put this together, either that layer cake or yardage or the jelly roll that you put together with this, might not have been, like you said, designated just for Christmas fabrics.
Right.
It just might be the color scheme that just happened to fall out of that fabric.
It looks like Christmas.
Exactly. So the pattern that I have selected here is called what, Diana?
This one is Spin on Feathers.
Okay, Spin on Feathers, a nice pattern on this one. We went with feathers because feathers always help soften a quilt. They really, really do. And this one has a little bit of a different take. The name of it works very well, the spin on it. It does have a spin on feathers. And it really softens these straight lines once we get it over there.
Well, it's also, to me, because it's done with batiks, it's a kind of an elegant quilt. And I always think of feathers as something that is really elegant. So since it's kind of an elegant quilt, then those feathers just, and they're not just, they're feathers that kind of have an echo on them, which really kind of kicks up the feather a notch to me.
Right, definitely. So now this is just if it was kind of like an everyday usage type of thing. If you were trying to stick with more of a Christmas theme, for instance, you could go with something like these, angels and trees. And this one's called what, Diana?
Winter Angel, and this one's from Linda Taylor, pattern 191, computerized and pantograph. And so was the other one, computerized and pantograph.
So with this one, you could go with a pattern that helps accentuate the theme of the quilt. It definitely adds a little bit to it. The stars in the pattern mimic the stars going on in the piecing. Oh, no, that's not the right way to zoom. Nothing like being live.
I'm telling
Nothing
you.
like being live. There we go. The trees and the stars on this one definitely accent the star piecing in it. The angel has that curve into it. The dress of the angel kind of looks like a little bit of a feather, the way it's hitting onto it. So it kind of softens that section a little bit more.
Well, and what you want to do on this is anytime that I do a pattern that is an edge to edge,
Yes.
this particular quilt has definite rows.
Right.
So you want to size that pattern to where it's not going to hit those seam lines on those rows.
Right.
Because if you've got any shrinkage, by the time you get 4 or 5 rows into it, it may not hit on those particular seam lines, and then you've caused yourself more work.
Right.
Okay, so you want to size that pattern a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger.
Right.
Now if you're doing that F word with freehand, then you got control of that, but I don't. So if you're computerized, then that's what you want to do. You want to pay attention to the size of that and not size it exactly the size of what the block is.
Right. And with this pattern, especially with those angels and trees, the way it sets up, they're stacked right on top of each other all the way down. Okay. So you could come in and you could alternate these rows. So it gives your eye somewhere to kind of rest for a second as it moves around, looking at what those designs are doing down the quilt.
It'd be a lot more interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
And that way you've told your customer, hey, I took a little bit of time with this. I thought about it a little bit, and I took a little bit of time to be able to think this through and do something a little bit more for you.
Right, right. Now, this next one is kind of amping it up a little bit, kind of working in different blocks. Let me move the angels over here out of the way. And these patterns right here that were made for these blocks are called what, Diana?
I don't know.
She don't know.
I know who makes them, but I didn't write down the name. One of them's from Nancy Hackey, and the other one's from Joyce Lundergan.
One is Echo Wave.
Yeah, the sashing is Echo Wave, and now because my OCD is going to kill me if I don't know.
There it is.
Geese on Edge, Block 6 by Nancy Hackey.
Yep.
So this one, you kind of just took over worrying about each individual piece of the quilt. You looked at this whole section as a block, okay? And you drew a boundary and you just dropped it in there. That's all that was needed for that one. Looks like it wasn't, but all that was needed was just draw a boundary and throw that in. If you look at the way that this pattern works with the piecing, it's going off on a 45, just like the piecing is. You see how that works?
Which is really easy to adjust,
Yes.
okay? And what is good about this one is the sashing of it will make its own cornerstone, okay? So it's really easy to place that, and because that sashing, if you think, okay, well, it might be a little bit of Christmas, it has kind of a holly look to it, number
Right.
one. And number two, it breaks up the block. You want to be able to tell the definite difference between where the block is and where the sashing is.
Right.
Again, you don't want them to all look matchy-matchy. You want them to,
You're right.
okay. You don't want them to look like that. There has to be some difference there to show that you went to the effort to be able to do that.
Yeah. And so the way these, like Joanne was saying, the way these patterns intersect here in the middle of the sashing, they come together in this point, which creates its own cornerstone where you're not having to stop and create another section right there just for one pattern and figure out what you have to put. They come in and hit perfect and continue moving on from there. just this little
And
extra
Corey,
right here.
and Corey, for the freehand quilter, couldn't they use like the basic 8 template like that and design off of that?
Okay. So yeah, for the freehand quilter, you could use, that's a very good point, Diana. I wish I had one here with me. You could set on this block right here, you could use that basic 8 template that we look at in our after hours videos as it cuts through all these angles, and then you could use your basic 8 book and design off of that to easily come up with something kind of similar to this, going off of those 45-degree angles.
Because it's in quadrants. The pattern that is chosen is in quadrants, and the block is in quadrants.
Right.
It's just ignoring the piecing a little bit so that you're not having to hit every single one of those inside sashings in that block.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which helps out, and it speeds up the process too.
Yes.
You're trying to get that quilting done.
Absolutely.
So the next one is a sampler quilt. And Joanne, you want to talk about how sampler quilts work? The one right behind us.
The one right behind us. Sampler quilts are a lot of fun, but to me, they are the ones that take the most time because every block is going to be different. Now, we did that purposely on this one because we wanted to be able to show as much as we could show. But if you get one of these in, whether you made it or whether it's your customer one, all of this runs together. You will drive yourself nuts trying to do and find a pattern, and probably a designer as well, find a pattern that's going to fit that block and work well with all of those other blocks in that quilt. And you're not going to see it. Whenever you get done with it, you will have done all of this beautiful work and you're really not going to be able to see it. So there's a couple of different ways you could go. You could put an edge to edge on it and have the edge to edge be in the blocks and do a different border treatment on it. So it gives it kind of a semi-custom look.
Right.
You could do that. You could do an edge to edge over the whole thing. And what we chose here was another feather pattern, because with this one, you've got to break up some of those straight lines, some of those seam lines, because don't try to do line work on this one.
No, don't.
You don't want to try to hit those seams with this one. You want to break up some of those straight lines and be able to put some curves in there and put some movement in there. And that will be a really pretty quilt when you get done with it.
Right. And the first time Joanna and I looked at this quilt, when she sent me the picture of it, the first thing we both said from a design standpoint is some kind of Southwestern pattern. It reads Southwest. It reads like kind of Aztec, the way that it's working. But most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, those patterns that you're looking at are all straight line patterns. That's how Southwest patterns are, because that's kind of the theme with it. So she looked at it again. She said, okay, what about autumn? Or what about fall? What about those rich bronze and copper colors in there? What can we do? And we thought, oh, maybe leaves.
Right.
So with that, you have just a nice simple, and this is just an edge to edge pattern, just to throw over that one. And this pattern is called what?
So this one is 1304 and it's Leaves in the Wind. And it also is available in paper pantograph for the customer that doesn't have a computerized machine, and also available in computerization. But yeah, 1302.
It's not going to be too heavy on this.
No.
It's not going to be a pattern that's going to be too heavy, so you're going to get it done relatively quickly. But look how you can avoid those seam lines with those curves that you're looking at right there.
Right. It softens that not harsh piecing, but those harsh straight lines that you've got there.
And there again, pay attention to those rows.
Yep.
Okay, you've got definite rows there, so pay attention to that whenever you're setting this up so that you don't fall right on one of those seams on those rows.
Right, definitely. So we have that one. That's just more of the faster version of what you could take it with. If you wanted to throw in some pearls into that, still have the leaves, but maybe have some pearls in to add extra curve to really break up those straight lines, if I can get over there.
Because we know somebody likes pearls.
Yeah. I don't know who that is, though.
That would be me.
That would be you. You could go with this option right here, and I will get it zoomed in. Give me just a second. You could go with this option right here. Still has the leaves, still has the curve, still has some of that semi-feather look, but it adds a little bit of pearl in and really helps kind of just give it that extra touch when it comes to the straight lines.
Yeah, and it's not a leaf. It's a leaf that has a vein in it.
Right.
which fancies it up a little bit.
Right.
Because it has that vein instead of just being just the outside of the leaf.
Yeah. I like
Yeah,
that.
and this pattern is actually 179. It's called Leaves and Circles by Linda Taylor. Again, everything we're showing you most likely is going to be available in Pantograph for that freehand quilter and also in an edge-to-edge version for that computerized quilter. So these are just really good ideas to kind of help show you like what you could put on quilts like this, but there's so many patterns out there that you can choose from. So just don't limit, just think what I'm seeing what they're doing. What do I have that I can make look that way?
Awesome. So the next quote we have in the lineup is this red, green, floral. A lot of vertical lines here, a lot of straight lines on this one. Very modern on this one. So if you're looking at a lot of those straight lines, Joanna and I will always tell you, try your best not to follow those straight lines.
No.
Because again, it's going to happen where it's going to fall into the ditch and your quilting design on the front is going to disappear. Okay. And all that work that you put into it is just going to fall into the back's going to look gorgeous, but the front, you won't be able to see it. So cut across those vertical lines, use that to your advantage and cut across those vertical lines and use something like this. This is, which one is this called, Dianna?
It's called Interlocking Lines, and that's also by Linda Taylor.
And what that does is break apart those vertical lines and add a little bit of dimension into it. And you said, you brought up a good point on this one earlier.
I did?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to remind me what that is?
No, I don't remember.
Okay.
But it was a good point.
Well, it's a modern quilt and it's line work, and so it's going to end up looking like plaid. That's what it was. So it looks like plaid whenever you get done with it because the piecing is going vertical, but the lines are going horizontal.
Right.
So you end up with a kind of a plaid look. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really pretty.
Go team.
I know. I like that one.
So you have that one if you're looking to keep it a little bit more modern. If you're trying to kind of counterbalance the modern side, maybe make it a little bit more traditional, you could use a pattern like this, and this one's called
Fire Flower by Linda Taylor.
So this fire flower pattern mimics the floral that's going on in the piecing. Okay, so you're kind of using that to your advantage in your design.
It's going to make it a little more girly, a little bit more feminine, because the quilt's done in the pinks and the reds with the pale green, and so it ends up being a little bit more feminine this way.
Right, and with this, like we've talked about throughout this whole episode, with this one, it has a lot of curve, which breaks up that straight vertical line piecing. Okay.
Corey, can you make that pattern a little bit darker so I can see it?
Oh, yes.
And so that the people, there you are, closer. Yeah, there we go. That way, so everybody watching from home can see it.
A little bit more where it breaks apart that, but works really well with those fabrics that you have on this one. So it looks really, really nice.
Because you want the fabrics to, a lot of times you want the fabrics to decide what the pattern is.
Right.
If there's a flower in the pattern and in the piecing and you choose a flower in the quilting, then they all are a lot more cohesive. They play better together.
Work really well that way. Yeah.
But I like the lines.
I like the lines too. I like the way you give it that.
Oh, that's good.
But the flowers look nice.
Yes, they do.
Hey, so
right.
Corey, put the lines back on and then make it so we can see it. We couldn't see the lines watching from afar.
Oh, she gets popcorn.
It's hard to see those lines in text.
I know.
It's hard.
That's right. Burn. Okay.
I'm working on it. There we go.
Well, I could see it that way. I just couldn't see it close up, and I wanted to kind of see what you were thinking when you kept saying patchwork.
Is that better? There we go.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. So yeah, it works across that, gives it that plaid look. And the way they interlock as well, this is something that we forgot to talk about. The way these patterns, the way this pattern interlocks with itself, it mimics the piecing on how the piecing interlocks together.
And this one's going to be fast.
Yes.
This is going to be really fast to do.
Right. So
looks good.
Looks good.
Yeah.
All right. The next one we have is this red, green, yellow. This was one that you actually brought here.
I did.
Yeah. And this one, we saw, again, a lot of straight lines in this one. Wanted something to break it up really nice and easy. Going in with an edge to edge, you could do this pattern called
Oh, sorry, I was chewing. This one's called Easy Gliding from, and it's 1313, and this one's from Jackie Brown.
I can never travel.
You know, you rehearse and somebody eats popcorn.
That's what happens.
I know.
In Texas.
This one has really big pieces. Okay, on this particular quilt, it's a wall hanging, but it's an oversized wall hanging, and it's got really big pieces. So what happens there is you end up, if you do something kind of custom, you have really big pieces that you put in there.
Right.
And if you're a freehander,
That word, a freehander.
if you're a freehander, okay, then you're good with that. You can deal with that. If you
Right.
have a computerized machine, the pieces may be so big that you don't have enough throat space to be able to handle the larger pieces.
Right.
So that's when an edge to edge will come in handy.
Definitely. And something that's a little bit more open like this will kind of help out the piecing with it being so
Right.
large. You don't want to go in with something really, really tight in these huge pieces.
No.
Because then it's just going to be all over the place. Yes, ma'am, we have a question. Oh, Diana, the name of the pattern again?
That one that you're showing is Easy Gliding, and it's number 1313 from Jackie Brown.
Easy Gliding 1313.
Yep.
So that one kind of, it helps mimic those, that large piecing. It works really well with it.
Yeah, and I like the curves of that one, the way it curves into a point. It's kind of a feather look, but it's got a little bit different twist on it, which gives it some interest.
Right. And then if you wanted to take it another route where you want to go in and do that more custom quilting where it's a little bit more, I would say a little bit more dense per se on this end.
Yeah.
But you could work with it because all these patterns are built, in multiple ways. You could come in with something like this just for this center section. And these are called what, Diana?
So these are from Joyce Lunder again, which is, I think she's there with you guys, isn't she?
Joyce is here.
I'm not sure why she won't get on the camera. No. She's like, no, I'm shy. Autumn Sunrise and Bezel Feather Triangle. I've really enjoyed a lot of her patterns. She has some really good patterns.
What we liked about this one is that it has that line work, and so it frames the center.
Yes.
And you take that line work out one more round.
Right.
And so you're framing that whole center of that quilt, but then you come in with those corners and you soften up that line work a little bit with some curves, which is really nice.
Right. And the feather in the bezel triangles mimics the feathers that are going on in the autumn sunrise.
Right.
So you're not losing that touch. Like you said, that line work or those channels kind of help also separate the big center from everything else going on in the background that it'll be.
Right.
Okay.
So and you can use that basic 8 template on here as well. I mean, you're just like put it in the center and then go off of the edges, the feathers and stuff.
Right. Yeah. This one works on that same 45 degrees. So you could throw your basic 8 in the center of it with those 8 lines and work off of those lines in your pounce powder when you're doing your free motion quilting. And it works out really well that way.
And then come back with some kind of line work. And we didn't do the last round, but in the last round, you come back with some kind of line work to be able to break up those feathers a little bit.
Yeah. So it works really well. Okay. The last one for tonight is the Churn Dash, and this is more of a discussion. We don't have pattern choices built for this, but Joanne had a really good discussion piece on this.
Because I've been staring at this one for a while.
You've been looking at it for a while.
Yeah.
I know you have. I get the text messages.
I like to do things where you take a lot of negative space and you put patterns into that negative space. That's just one of the things that I like to play with. And when I got this one, I thought that this would be a perfect one to do some of those negative spaces in the black and be able to put those patterns in there. But when you see the actual quilt, those spaces are really narrow. And so if you have those spaces that are really narrow, to me, I'm wasting time by putting patterns in there. I can throw a pattern in every once in a while in some of the bigger spaces over on the right side, but it's going to look a little bit disjointed to me. So instead of doing that, just simple line work in all the black. Do a black thread and do simple line work, load it horizontal, and do that, and then save the churn dashes, the green and the white and the gray, and put triangle patterns or some of those more modern patterns in there, and save that those negative space patterns for something that has a lot more negative space.
Right. So for something like this, if you did load it horizontally, where right now in the picture it's vertical, but if you did load it horizontally, you could use the channel lock on your machine if you wanted to do it by hand, free motion, your favorite.
Well, and I have done that, believe it or not.
It's actually sometimes a whole lot faster. You did it. Y'all heard that. Everyone heard it.
Well, it's
YouTube
really easy because if you take it and do a channel lock and you do it with regulated, then what you do is you put your channel lock on and you run that straight line. And when you get to like that green part of that churn dash, you stop and do a tacking stitch.
Right.
Okay. Is that what it's called? That's what it's called.
Off attacking.
Yeah. You do just a little back and forth tacking stitch.
Right.
Okay. Then you jump over the green, and when you jump over the green, you pick it back up and you've got your channel lock on, so you know you've got straight lines going all the way down through it.
Exactly.
And it's easy and it's fast to be able to do it that way, and it's a whole lot easier than doing computerized.
Yeah, you could just basically cut those jump stitches when you're done
Yes.
and be done with it.
Yes.
As long as you do that tacking stitch so it doesn't come out. That
Right.
back and forth.
So you've got that, and then you just, and what I did on one that I did was random lines.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want every line to be a ½ inch apart, then if you have any kind of shrinkage, by the time you get to the bottom of the quilt, you may not have that ½ inch.
It sounds like you're speaking from experience.
You think? You may not have that. I figured it out ahead of time.
Yes, ma'am.
So what I did was random lines.
Right.
Okay, random spaces on my lines.
Right.
So that way, when I got to the edge, it just looked like it was all planned.
It was a design choice.
It was.
Yeah, it was a design choice.
But it was easier to do it that way and have them those random links.
Definitely. So that takes us through those options there. Hey now.
Ooh,
There we go.
there you go.
All right, Dusty, can we get lights back?
Lights, camera, action. Come on.
Dusty?
He's not.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just finish off in the dark. No problem there. So we hope that gave you all here at Southern Belle, along with all over the world, a couple of different ideas on how Joanne and I look at quilt tops and how we're going to determine what we want to put on that quilt in that space to make it a little bit easier. Oh, hey now. There we go. Let there be light.
Let there be light. Yep, that's what I was thinking too.
So we hope that gave you just an amazing a few more ideas on those designs on how you want to take them.
Diana, thank you so much for joining us at Southern Belle.
Well, I'm excited to be there.
You said what? They didn't hear you.
I said, I am so excited to be there with you guys right now. I was actually thinking, man, it'd be kind of cool just to jump in the car and drive the 5 hours. But then I was like, yeah, it's so much easier to sit in my house.
All righty. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here on After Hours. Be sure to tune in next Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, where we go through another 6 or 7 quilts when we're looking at more design choices, a completely new set. So Joanne and I will be doing that once more.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and we will see you next time.
Bye.